I have come to the conclusion that we're in a cycle of sexism. And it's really not men versus women, either or's fault. I don't think that anyone is, the evil, like the overarching evil. I think that there is simply a really detrimental cycle in place that needs to be broken through understanding each other and love. So I've been kind of creating an outline for where we can go with that, and just kind of a little bit more background to where this cycle began. So here's what I have is that from the beginning of humanity, women, it's just biology, it's our nature. Women are the selective sex, right? So if women are the selective sex, that puts men in a position to either score a mate or essentially allow their line to die out, which is an enormous amount of pressure. So from, the beginning of humanity, it was a man's literal value as far as are you going to be worth anything to this earth in terms of are you going to create a line of other humans or not, was based on can I get a woman or not. And so of course with something so intense like that, there's tension that arises from that. And with that tension, with that level of pressure comes, how cute! Oh, I like the little watermelon glasses. But with that tension comes anger. It's a natural process. And so, there were so many men who, in the history of humanity who ended up with all of this energy of anger and resentment to women because they couldn't find a mate, and their entire lineage was at stake. And they came to a place of either they need to take a woman if they won't come, by choice. They need to either take a woman, rape her, or they will die. They will die. Their existence will be for naught, and their lineage will die out. Very intense. Lots of pressure there. So anyways, that energy continuing, just spiraling for hundreds and thousands of years is not going to just disappear, as things become less primal. That energy it doesn't just disappear. It has to go somewhere. And it has followed through into these more modern days. And that's really, it's creating such of course it still applies, that primal, we're still animals. We still come from a level of needing to procreate, and the whole mating thing is very animalistic, and there's a lot of subconscious needs that come into play around wanting a mate that can provide, as far as men, and wanting a mate who can mother children well, when it comes to women. And so that all comes into play, but there is a lot of leftover energy from all of this hurt and tension historically. And so, there's this cycle of men resenting women, and because of that tension, women resenting men. And so it's obviously really volatile. There's like so much energy there, and based on the realest shit ever, it comes down to survival. Like, it's everything. So no wonder there's so much hurt between men and women. And so for so much pain to be brought onto women by men, there must be an enormous underlying pain in men, because wrongdoings are rooted in fear, and fear is rooted in past hurt. So what is needed in this world is the healing of men. That's what I've come to conclude. It's like, we need to start there. Men are hurt, or they wouldn't be causing so much hurt. So I came up with some steps for how to begin this healing process, and it's pretty like intricate. It involves healing women and healing men, and it's all a cycle. Hello. So the first things first, safety first, is that women need to stand together and protect each other. In the meantime, while we're trying to heal men and break this cycle, we need to stay safe. Women are not coming through for each other enough. I see friendships where there's trust that each other are going to have each other's backs, and women just dropping the ball when their friend gets taken advantage of. I have done it myself. I have had it done to me by other women, and we need to stand up for each other. We need to band together. We need to have that be our number one priority. If we see the potential for a woman to be taken advantage of or to be mistreated in any way by someone who is physically stronger than them, or emotionally manipulative of their vulnerability as a feeling, desiring woman, then we need to step in. We need to empower ourselves to step in and empower our sisters and protect each other. So the second thing is psychology, communication, and sex ed need to be emphasized, heavily emphasized from the young age, from elementary school. Every single year there needs to be a heavy emphasis. I'm talking like half of the classes should be dedicated to some form of psychology, communication, and sex ed. Obviously, at younger ages, the sex ed needs to be like, taken into account. There needs to be like a appropriate levels incorporated as they age and are able to comprehend different levels of like sexuality. But yeah, that all needs to be heavily incorporated. We need to get educated and understand each other, understand the way that we work. The third thing is that women must become vocal in their everyday dealings about their desires of men. So the truth is that I've just had these little pieces of realizations over years to result in an overall realization, this like sort of epiphany that men just do not know what we want, ladies. They don't understand what is attractive. They're like trying to play all these little games to appear strong and confident and, able to take the initiative, able to wear the pants. And it's just such a turnoff in so many ways. They're sort of, their attempts are just, they're revolting. And for the most part, like, it is so rare that a guy will actually be genuine and actually be attractive in that. And so we need to become vocal, and we need to start engaging in positive reinforcement of their being genuine and vulnerable, because those are the two things that are actually going to create a positive relationship. And positive is sexy. So, yeah, I mean, okay, so first of all, it is amazing to me how shocked so many men seem to be when I tell them that I do not want to be touched without permission. Like, without my permission, I don't want them to touch me. Or, you know, without my getting to know them well, I don't want them to comment on me in, you know, an intimate way. I want them to, you know, appreciate me and to see me and to, you know, celebrate, like, who I am as an individual, not as a category. Hot girl, you know, young girl, blonde, you know, whatever, like, they decide to categorize you as, like, you know, slut, whatever, like, they, you know, hippie, like, whatever they categorize you as, and base your value on that. It's like, no, like, we want to be celebrated for our individuality, and that's ultimately what women are looking for, and why they feed into that attention that they get oftentimes, and myself included, that is shallow attention, but it's only because we're seeking something deeper, and we don't know how to get that a lot of the time. And so it's just, it's all part of the cycle. So anyways, we need to become vocal about we need to get clear on what it is that we're really seeking from men, and then we need to be vocal about that. So, yeah, like, because, okay, to go back onto that, you know, I've seen so many men become really shocked when I say I don't want to be touched, without giving my permission. It's like, you know, there's been countless, I hate to even, like, verbalize this, which is part of the problem, this like avoidance in verbalizing this, but there have been countless times in my life where a man has touched me in a way that made me uncomfortable, and when I voiced it, and unfortunately the majority of the times I did not voice it, but when I did voice it, it was like seeing a light go on behind their eyes, and they suddenly became self-aware. It was like they snapped out of something, this, like, idea that they thought they were being okay, and they, like, genuinely thought they were being okay, that this is how to get a woman's attention. And I saw this kind of light go on, and then they started defending themselves immediately. Like, I promise I'm not rapey. Like, I didn't, oh my God, like, I don't even know, like, why I did that. And, you know, really feeling like this guilt around being rapey. And they'll, like, use that terminology as well. And so anyways, then the funny thing is that most of the time, if you stick around that same guy long enough after them apologizing and, like, you expressing that you don't like it, most of the time, if you stick around long enough, they will disrespect you again. They will engage in that same behavior, which is very telling of the context that they're in. They're in a mindset, they have a perspective that is so skewed, it's so ingrained that this is the only way to get attention or to be close with a woman, that they can't, it's going to take more for them to have a shift and actually understand. So anyways, you know, when you're around a man like that, it's like, sometimes, you know, express yourself, you know, and stick around if you feel like they may hear you. And if it happens again and you see that pattern continued, get out of there. They're not ready. They're not ready. for a woman in their life. They're not ready. And that's sad. They've been really heavily brainwashed, essentially, and that it's just the situation. You need to protect yourself. And so let's see here. So yeah, the more that women speak up when this happens and speak from an empowered heart, putting out the message, I am a human, the same as you. I am a daughter. I was a child once, like bring in this, however you need to, bring in this message of that I am a human being. I am not an object to increase your worth. I am a real human being. You may be a niece of someone, a daughter of someone, like you're a human. You were a child once. Like, look at this woman that you are disrespecting, that you are manipulating, that you are considering an object. She's flesh and blood, the same as you. So we need to start communicating that. We need to start representing ourselves as, flesh and blood with a soul, and making that known, making that loud and clear. And, speaking our truth in that. For me, my purpose with men, among other things, is to nurture and comfort and guide them. I'm not here to be owned. I'm not here to be an asset. I'm here to nurture, to complement their masculinity, and to comfort and guide and love. So, moving into basically like off of that, I recognize that I find myself so often feeding the cycle of hurt and abuse because of the disrespect I've experienced in the past. I assume that men are seeing me through a lens of either needing to own me or resent me if they can't own me. And because I bring that expectation, I bring that energy, I subconsciously engage and co-create the opportunity for further disrespect. So how can we actually protect ourselves and other women, but at the same time enter interactions with men without this negative lens, without feeding the cycle? The first, so I came up with some really good ideas, and this, I want to stress that this does not close the issue. I feel like this is, food for thought around how to further the movement of breaking this cycle. And so the first thing I came up with is that we need to become slower in our relationships. It is so, we all want to be loved. We all want to have successful, fulfilling relationships. And I think that create that kind of urgency almost to be loved and to have the perfect relationship. We're too quick. We're too quick in the evolution of relationships, and we need to slow down with patience and slowness and careful movement comes opportunity for realer connection based on deeper pieces to both individuals, or however many individuals are involved in the relationship. taking the time to be vulnerable with the chance of rejection and with the chance of it not being a good fit, and just accepting that instead of frantically just trying to close a deal. The second is creating a safe space. Women, we need to create a safe space for men to be emotional and vulnerable and to use their words. If you open the floor to a man in this way, if you are able to create a space that is loving and nurturing to their vulnerability, and they are unable to receive that safe space, then they're not ready to accept a woman into their life. And you need to get out. And it's just the long and the short of it. It's like there's no room to justify or create something there. This man is not ready. And I also want to add that, obviously, like, the root of men, as touched on, like, the root of men wanting a woman in the first place is procreation, the urge to procreate. And so, we need to create a new sort of connection for men between emotion equals sexy. To me, emotion does equal sexy. I cannot, and just vulnerability and realness. Like, there's nothing in this world that turns me off more than a man trying to convince me of some superficial greatness. It's just the most truly unattractive thing I could imagine and that I have experienced. The most attractive and sexy and exciting thing to me is when I see a man coming from his heart and speaking about his fears and his truest, like, deepest desires. Oh my gosh, it is so sexy. I really can't express fully how much that attracts me and intrigues me. On a sexual level, like on an intellectual, emotional, spiritual, sexual level, like all of the above. So we need to, like, get that out there, because I know I'm not alone in that, ladies. Like, we definitely, that's what we want. Like, that is what we want. And if we're seeking anything superficial, it's coming from our own insecurities. So truly, underneath those insecurities, what we want is real vulnerability and intimacy. It's just across the board. It's just, if we want a real and healthy and gratifying relationship, it's going to be based on vulnerability. So, yeah, if the man is not ready to receive that, kick him out. He's not ready. He still needs to go through more outside of a relationship before he can get into a relationship. All right, so I mentioned the idea of positive reinforcement, and I feel like this is huge because there's all of this energy lingering from the history of mankind where men were rejected, and when they were rejected, that essentially decreases their value to pretty much zero on this planet, historically. And biologically, not my opinion. It's just kind of the way that it goes, or has gone. And so, yeah, that energy that was created and that lingers and that is fed to this day, we need to redirect it. We need to redirect it through positive reinforcement. So when we see them acting from a place, when we experience men acting from a place of fear, I need to own you or resent you, because otherwise my lineage is going to die out. Like, when we see them coming from a place of that, we need to disengage. we need to stop babying that behavior, and instead we need to focus our energy and positive reinforcement into places when, you know, they do speak out about their feelings, or when they do, you know, communicate that they're scared. Like, when they actually are able to open up about that, we need to jump on that opportunity to push that energy into a forward momentum, and you know, let them know, like, put it on loudspeaker, like, wow, that makes me really interested in you, that makes me, you know, feel more trusting of you, that makes me, you know, feel more sexual towards you. Like, bring it all to the surface. Don't let those feelings be you know, be kind of just taboo or idle. Like, let's get them out there, because it's the truth. It's the underlying message that we're not declaring, and it needs to be put out there, and it needs to be put out there at these very specific moments. So let's see. Yeah, and with that, you know, when a man is giving you attention based on just your body, and you can sense that, you need to express, you know, we need to start becoming more vulnerable ourselves, and expressing that this has been a hard one for me, but expressing that, hey, like, I like getting attention from you, so it's hard for me to reject that. But here's the truth. The only reason why I like that shallow attention you're giving me is because of my insecurity around not knowing how to get the attention on a deeper level, on a soul level. We need to get real about this shit, because it's real. It's true. It's real. That's what we're actually craving when we actually reinforce this negative, shallow attention from men. It's not about that shallow attention. That's not what we actually want. The only reason it feels good is because there's a lack, something deeper that's lacking. So let's put that on loudspeaker. Let's set the story straight. Yeah, so, and then again, if they can't hear that, if they're turned off by that, they're not ready. They're not ready to engage with a powerful, whole, and genuine woman. They're not ready for a relationship. They're not ready for intimacy. So, you know, definitely don't have sex with them. Get out of there. So, yeah, and with that, women, we have to start lifting each other up more, because whenever there's a deficiency in one place, it creates this kind of frantic energy of trying to fill that gap and fill that void. And so, you know, it happens on both sides of the sex. With women, if we are not lifting each other up and celebrating each other's beauty and power, and if we're treating each other as more as competition than as, you know, opportunity for sisterhood and for empowerment, there creates this kind of void where we start seeking cheap validation from men to replace our feeling non-accepted by our own sex. And so as we uplift each other, we will create more possibility for not having this frantic urge to be validated, and in that being able to reinforce the positive behavior of men instead of their negative behaviors. It's all so intertwined. So, and then on the side of men, oh my goodness, men, like, stop bringing each other down. Stop treating each other like shit just because I mean, let's be real, there is some competition. It is kind of survival of the fittest, and that's very heavily ingrained in men. But we don't need to bring each other down out of fear, because ultimately that is what you're doing. Like, you're acting all tough and you're acting all like you don't care about each other, when really it stems from fear of not being cared for, of not being accepted by each other. And that's just a silly snowball of like fear and hate, and it can be redirected. And the way that we can start redirecting that, men, the way that you can do that is in just kind of becoming more vulnerable with each other by saying, like, tell your friends that you care about them, and that, like, you don't know what you would do without them, and let them know that, like, where you would be without them, and what their friendship does for you, and how it enriches your life. Like, just get real about it. And it's probably going to feel strange and uncomfortable and awkward at first, because that's so heavily ingrained that it ultimately comes from a homophobic society, which is super outdated. It's in the past. Let's leave it behind. So stop creating this gap between your loved ones by refusing to acknowledge that they are your loved ones. Let's start putting that on blast, and like, boost your friends' confidence. Like, let them know they're looking sexy when they're looking sexy. Girls do it all the time to each other, and it's really the same thing with men. There's literally, the difference is that guys are afraid of coming across homophobic, which is an outdated bullshit view. So let's just empower the fact that that's in the past, and start communicating with each other. Give each other more hugs, give each other more love, let each other know what you mean to each other. And within that, there will become less urge, less tension for men around proving themselves in this world, and within that, less abuse and more opportunity for real connections with women. So yeah, and I want to promise you that when you create this level of realness with other men, and you start to verbalize your love and vulnerability, the men who reject that, the men who are too uncomfortable with themselves to accept and embrace that love, will naturally leave your life, which might look sad at first, but it will actually create a space for the richness that you've always craved in brotherhood with other souls who are on the same plane as you. It will create that opportunity, which will otherwise not be available to you. So you just have to step out on a limb and start verbalizing how you actually feel, and create access to brotherhood. That's what you really want. That's what you crave. So, invite that into your life. And so, it looks like that's all I got for trying to break that cycle of the resentment between men and women. But I'm definitely going to continue, brainstorming and researching and taking polls and getting to the bottom of this issue. And I really, really, really encourage anyone who does watch this video to please, at least give these issues some thought, give these ideas some thought, and try to embrace them and take them into your daily life. And, this is going against thousands of years of the way that humans have interacted with each other. And that energy is strong. And so it will be uncomfortable, but empower yourself to create a brighter, more loving, less abusive future.